Afternoon, Stony Brook Seawolves. My name is Robert Presser, and I am a double alum of Stony Brook University. I am also a member of the Stony Brook Hillel Board of Directors, and I will be administering a Devar Torah for each of you today. This week's Torah portion is Va'etz Hanan, and I'd like to begin by just discussing a general overview per Chabad.org. So in this week's Torah reading, Va'et Hanan, Moses continues his attempt to impress upon the Israelites the importance of following God's commandments, the rewards which will result from obeying God's words, and punishments they will incur if they neglect to do so. Moses recounts the story of the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, and then repeats the Ten Commandments. And Moses designates the cities of refuge as well. And finally, this portion also includes the Shema. Now, in mentioning the Ten Commandments and the Shema, I'd like to just discuss an element that I took away from this week's Torah portion, which is an emphasis on the strategy of repetition. As some of you might know, the Shema and the Ten Commandments appear in the Torah several times each. And I think that this is God's way of illustrating that if you needed to boil down Judaism to a few lines of text, both the Ten Commandments and the Shema would be among the first items to include therein. Moreover, we've seen other great orators use the skill of repetition as well. And one of those speakers who was known for using repetition was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was at one time quoted as saying, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it always bends toward justice." And the reason this is relevant to me while reading this week's Torah portion is because in the seventh Aliyah, we see that God orders the Israelites to, quote, utterly destroy the inhabitants of Canaan along with their idols. Now, by today's standards, we might view that as being totally barbaric and totally unethical. And I would certainly agree with that as well. But I think that if God had commanded the Israelites to do this, there was a greater reason for why they were commanded to engage in such barbarism. So the way that I understand this, and I would definitely encourage each of you to try to come to terms with this as well, and some of the other acts that we would consider brutality in the Torah, is by understanding this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that we are always trying to better ourselves as a society. We are always trying to live up to better and higher principles and do the best that we absolutely can for one another. So with that said, I wish each and every one of you a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to being with all of you soon.